Joel Embiid should be the 2023 NBA MVP. For a long time this year, the MVP race seemed out of reach for Joel Embiid. In the most recent ESPN NBA MVP straw poll, which was this past February on the 16th, Embiid had 6 first-place votes, Giannis Antetokounmpo had 11 first-place votes, and Nikola Jokic had 77 first-place votes. All three of these guys are extremely deserving of this award, and I believe are the only candidates for this award this season. At the time of this straw poll, the Nuggets were 5 games ahead in the West at the first seed at 41-18. The Bucks were at the second seed in the East, beginning to roll at 40-17, and the Sixers were right on the tail of Milwaukee, sitting at the third seed with a 38-19 record. Something has shifted over the last 5 weeks, but this time in favor of Joel Embiid, for what seems like the first time in his career. All of Joel's career has been unfortunate. When he first came into the league, he was plagued with injuries. He missed his first 2 years in the league entirely due to a career-threatening navicular bone fracture in his right foot. Then, in his rookie playing year, his third year in the NBA, he would be limited to just 28 minutes a game without playing back-to-backs. He impressed in his rookie season, but played just 31 games while missing some in between. Eventually, he got diagnosed with a torn meniscus and would miss the remainder of his rookie season. In his second playing season, he finally got to show what he could do for 60-plus games.
Embiid, wow, what a play by Embiid! For 4. This show and go, Embiid detonates! Beautiful move.
The Sixers were looking to be on track for a playoff run for the first time since 2012, but then tragedy struck. Markelle Fultz broke Joel's face. The Sixers would then eventually lose to the Boston Celtics in the second round. Keep that word in mind. Second. Following the playoffs that summer, on June 7th particularly, Philadelphia's president of basketball operations and general manager Brian Colangelo, who was practically forced on the team by the way, resigned from his position for operating burner accounts to talk bad about his own team. I'm going to link an article in the description that describes the whole fiasco if you're interested. It's pretty wild. But here are some of the tweets about Joel specifically. I am sure it is hard for him to, quote, process the fact that this is now Ben's team. So he is acting up. The ego foul is costing us big. Too bad that Embiid danced like a fool and the whole disaster happened. Next time he will think twice before mocking his team. Joe maybe didn't want to be seen as an ever-growing list of different injuries, looking even more fragile and weak. If I had a medium-sized ladder, I would love to knock some sense in Joel's head right now. He is playing like a toddler having tantrums. Keep in mind, by the way, this is at the time, the president of basketball operations and general manager of the 76ers talking about the team's star player on Twitter through burner accounts. That is insanity. The following season, the Sixers knew Joel was the guy and wanted to build a championship roster around Joel and Ben. The Sixers decided to trade for Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris. The season goes well, everyone is relatively healthy. They made it to the second round in the playoffs, and well, I don't really want to talk about it.
Defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger?
After that series, Jimmy goes to Miami and the Sixers signed Tobias to a max deal. The season after was a really tough year for the NBA due to COVID, and the Sixers made some horrible roster building decisions. After maxing Tobias Harris, the Sixers decided to give a max deal to Al Horford, who played the same position as Joel Embiid and was his direct competitor on those Boston teams. Let's just fast forward through this one, a wasted season. In the bubble playoffs, Joel and the Sixers were hastily swept out of the first round by none other than the Boston Celtics. The following year, Daryl Morey comes to town and the Sixers start to head back in the right direction. Al Horford gets traded for Danny Green, Josh Richardson would get dubbed for Seth Curry, and the Sixers would draft Tyrese Maxey. 3 great moves at the time. Sure enough, Philadelphia played well in the regular season, winning 49 games and grabbing the first seed in the Eastern Conference. Everything seemed to be coming together for Philadelphia. The Sixers would match up with the Atlanta Hawks in the second round. Little did we know, Philly would probably have one of the worst second-round collapses ever. They would blow a 26-point lead in Game 5 of the series to go down 3-2 against Atlanta. Eventually, the series will be brought back to Philadelphia for Game 7, and the NBA was blessed with this iconic moment.
Tapping his way in. Spins on Gallinari. Gives it up. Oh, he was right there. And a foul as Thibault goes to the basket. Boy, Simmons uncontested.
The Sixers would lose in dramatic fashion with collapses in every way. Poor coaching, players coming up short, along with perhaps the biggest collapse of a player's career in the history of the NBA. This was also the first year that Joel Embiid had serious MVP candidacy. He would finish in second place behind Nikola Jokic. The following offseason, Ben would request a trade, which filled the following regular season with tons of drama. Joel Embiid and the Sixers would stay the course as he delivered his best season yet with the help of a new face. James Harden came to town right ahead of the deadline in a blockbuster deal that had Ben Simmons going to Brooklyn. The new duo kicked it off strong, but there were some growing pains along the way. Joel would finish the season as the scoring champ and once again a serious candidate for the MVP. Joel was the first center since Shaq to secure a scoring title. Everything was gravy going into the playoffs as they matched up with the Toronto Raptors in the first round. Joel was electric in this first round series, delivering some special moments and easily the best player performances of his career. And then, tragedy would strike once again. Remember when Markelle Fultz broke Joel's face? Well, it happened again.
I mean, be a good sportsman. And you know what it is, Matt, karma is a you-know-what, right? And, look, you're an old...
This time, while the Sixers were up 30, with just a few minutes left in the game before they would advance to the second round. The Sixers would go on to face the Miami Heat and a familiar face in Jimmy Butler. Joel would miss the first two games and come back maxed up in Game 3. He clearly was not the same as he struggled mightily throughout the series. The Sixers would falter once again in the second round. The fourth second-round exit in Joel's career. Joel Embiid, once again, will come up short, not only in the second round in the playoffs for the second consecutive year, but second in MVP votes again, as Nikola Jokic would secure his back-to-back MVP and deservedly so. So here we are now, 3 weeks into March of the 2022-23 NBA season. What has changed? Well, Joel just kept getting better.
5 seconds to go.
There you go.
Embiid driving, spinning, fading, hitting.
Ideal.
James behind the back to Joel, fading and hitting.
Head for White. Oh! Guns fired.
56:49 minutes to go. Embiid. This is a boat.
If this was the second half, we could turn that into some Chick-fil-A.
Embiid this season has been putting up monster performances multiple times a week all year long. On the season, Joel is averaging 33.5 points per game while grabbing 10 rebounds and 4 assists per game, also grabbing a steal per game and just shy of 2 blocks a game. Joel has dominated on both ends of the floor, all while being hyper efficient. He's shooting 54.6% from the field, 35.5% from 3, and 85.5% from the charity stripe. If we take a look at NBA history, there are only 2 guys who have ever averaged 33 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists with a true shooting percentage at 60% or better. Those 2 guys are Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Joel Embiid. Kareem did it in the 1971-72 season, where he would win his second of 6 MVPs. Joel seems to be on pace to secure his second straight scoring title, as Luka trails half a point behind but has been missing some games due to injury. With only 11 games to go for Dallas, it's not impossible, but with some unlikely games missed over that time for Luka, it'll be hard for him to catch Joel. If Joel does secure his second straight scoring title, where does that put him amongst the greats? There have been 13 times in NBA history where the same player has been the scoring champion of the league in consecutive seasons. 10 of these 13 players have played in their prime since the MVP award was created in 1956. Of these 10, 9 of these players would at some point in their career win MVP. All 3 centers that accomplished this feat all won MVP. If Joel Embiid were to accomplish this feat, he would be the first center to do it since Bob McAdoo in the 1975-76 season. If the season ended today, Joel Embiid is averaging 47.5 points per 100 possessions, which is the second best mark in NBA history, just trailing his teammate James Harden, who averaged 48.2 points per 100 possessions during his ridiculous scoring tear in the 2018-19 season. Not only has Joel been an uber-efficient scorer, but he's been very good defensively as well. Currently, Joel is contesting 19.1 field goal attempts per game with a defensive field goal percentage of 46.6, which is very comparable to the Defensive Player of the Year frontrunner in Brook Lopez. Brook is currently contesting 22.8 shots per game with a defensive field goal percentage of 46.3. Embiid has been great on the floor, but how good has his team been? The Sixers started off rocky out of the gate this season, starting at just 12-12. They were the 7th seed at the time, all while Boston and Milwaukee were balling. In those 24 games, Embiid's running mate, James Harden, missed 14 of those games. At this point, Embiid's MVP chances were completely written off. All Philadelphia was worried about was getting their act together. James Harden returned to the lineup on December 5th. Since December 5th, the Sixers have had the #1 record in the league at 36-11, with a win percentage of 76.6. The second closest is Milwaukee, who have been 35-14 with a 71.4 win percentage. In that 47-game stretch, Joel Embiid and the Sixers have had some very impressive wins. On January 28th, Joel Embiid scored 47 in a win, head-to-head with Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. I'd say at that moment in time, that was when the MVP flame first started to burn for Joel this year. On March 4th, the Sixers hit the road and headed into Milwaukee, where Joel would face off with another MVP candidate in Giannis Antetokounmpo. In the fourth quarter, Joel displayed just how great he is on both ends of the floor. Joel would force the miss on Giannis on great defense, then come down and hit the go-ahead triple late in the fourth quarter. Just a few possessions later, with the game still hanging in the balance, Embiid gets a huge stop on Giannis and forces the travel. This game will be the start of something special for Philadelphia, as it kickstarted a now league-best 8-game win streak for the Sixers. Over the course of that 8-game stretch, Joel Embiid has been averaging 36 points a game, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists, all while shooting wildly efficient from the floor. He has 63, 48, 85 shooting splits, which would equate to a ridiculous 73 true shooting percentage. Joel and the Sixers currently sit in the 2nd seed in the East, just barely ahead of Boston with a record of 48-22. With 12 games remaining, they have the hardest remaining schedule out of anyone in the league according to Tankathon.com. They are also one of only 5 teams in the league who have 12 games remaining, which is the most possible at this point in the season. Of these 12 games, 2 games stand out especially. On March 27th, Joel Embiid and the 76ers will travel to Denver to face off against Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets. Just a few days later, they will fly to Milwaukee on April 2nd to face off against Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks. Joel Embiid is in the driver's seat of the MVP race, and for what seems like in the first time in his career, he has full control of whatever outcome he desires.